Hi everybody, welcome to Eating Peace this week. If you know me at all, you have probably noticed that I say over and over again to get a journal and to write down your thoughts. Now let's say you've been doing that for a while, or you've done it before, and you notice you have the same repetitive, stressful, maybe you even judge the thoughts as being sort of ridiculous and like you just say them over and over again when it comes to food and eating and your body and exercise and some kind of balance. These are thoughts like, I shouldn't have eaten that. I should be eating this other thing. I should go to the gym. I want to be thin. Such and such food is bad for me. This other kind of food will make me fat. Those can all be actually quite powerful to identify and just see what it is in the wording where I learned that thought. Something like, that kind of food will make me fat. And then take that through inquiry. Is it true? Can I absolutely know it's true? How do I react when I think that thought and I'm in the presence of that food? Run for your life, avoid it, be in a conflict or a battle about it. Who would I be without that thought? That kind of food will make me fat. Who would I be if I couldn't even have that thought? And you find it's a process of meditation. So I'm actually just walking through that quite quickly. And then turning the thoughts around to find their alternatives, the opposites. My thinking will make me fat. That food will not make me fat. But I wanted to go a little deeper today into some of those, beyond or expanding outside of some of those regular, pervasive, persistent thoughts that we've all, had over and over again. I should lose weight. And to actually see what else might be under the surface. And this is a fantastic exercise. So what we do in this exercise is to first document and note where it is that we have trouble with food and eating. What's going on? What does the space and time look like? Many people have concerns, like for example, at the end of the day. I know I've shared that before. When you have kind of an empty space of time, 5 hours of evening before bedtime, and you're not working and you don't have any specific duties, or they're really light, or you're not at work, busy, or at school, occupied, surrounded by other people. So you've sort of gotten to this quiet place where feelings and thoughts and ideas about food and eating and this whole experience of having this body and wanting to eat and also wanting to be thinner, whatever it is that's going on, that they all come to the forefront because you have the time and space to be considering them. You're not required, you're not busy, you're not required to be someplace else. It doesn't have to be that type of time. You can also notice, as some people have that I've worked with, where you're in a big board meeting and there's a lot of food there and you have trouble with food and eating. Or you're at a giant event where there's a feast. I've talked about that lately because it's holiday season, and that's the place that you have a lot of trouble. But this is sort of delving into one of those moments when you have trouble. Maybe you say all of the above. I constantly have trouble from morning to night. I am constantly thinking about food and eating and how I shouldn't be eating as much and the whole dilemma and problem. That's okay too. But here's what I offer as an exercise to notice. And that is to see what else is going on besides only those common repetitive thoughts that you already are quite aware of. And one way to consider, or to crack into those, because they kind of tend to be not super conscious and they almost feel a little bit hidden, it sure did for me, was to see what conflicting beliefs I have running that make it impossible to be relaxed with food and eating or resting with the body that I have. What else is going on that make that so I can't be calm or not having the thoughts that eating something would be good, not eating something would be, some sort of battle that ensues in my day or in that experience. So what would it be if I opened myself up a little to this is happening for some very good reason? Or even as Janine Roth, I've heard her or read her work say long ago, all kinds of eating off balance happens for some exquisitely good reason. In the mind, it's going on, it's got an invitation or a message or something that wants you to open up to a greater idea. Or, I just really like that word invitation. There's an invitation here to see something that we're not seeing. So what else could be happening in that moment that bothers me or disturbs me or makes me move towards food and eating as a dilemma or an issue versus whatever else is a dilemma or problem or issue? A very simple question can be, where have you felt betrayed in your life? And I mean in any situation with any people. And if that feels like a gigantic question, then go back into your childhood. Who was the first person who ever betrayed you or shocked you, scared you, alarmed you? Who was the first person that you encountered that you would say that about? See if there's an image or a situation that comes to mind. What age are you? What's going on? How did that happen? What's a moment when it really felt like the volume was turned up on your feeling of betrayal or shock or surprise or upset or trouble, where you got frightened? So that's kind of a very, very simple way to put it. And I know sometimes that can open up people to quite traumatic situations. But it's very powerful to take a look at those using the work of Byron Katie, and often really good to do that with another person in your life so that you have support and quietness and compassion, being with another person that helps you feel like you can remain safe as you remember that old betrayal situation. You can also remind yourself of the stressful thought, I am not safe, as I remember that. I like noticing that I can question the thought, I am not safe. I am not safe. Is that true? It hasn't ever been true. As I remember past trauma or difficult situations that I once experienced, it is actually safe, I notice, to remember them in the current present moment. I am completely safe. It's only my thinking and my feelings that are unsafe. Who would I be without the thought I'm not safe? I'd be just woman remembering something that happened and sorting through it, resolving it, questioning it, taking it through inquiry. Who would I be without that thought? Much more relaxed, trusting the process. Turning that around, I am safe. I am safe as I remember something difficult that happened in my past that feels like a betrayal. So that's a very, very simple way to look at past disturbances that may seem like they have nothing to do with food or eating, but sometimes why we would move to the experience of food or eating, like comforting ourselves, soothing ourselves, engaging in an activity that feels like sort of compulsive. It's often, to me, felt like it had an escape hatch to it. I was like moving away from something in the background here to something else that felt very, understood, easy to be with, kind of, comforting. Like I knew exactly where this was going. I could grab and intake and consume something. I felt less like maybe a victim than as I remembered the original stressful situation. So that's just one piece of the exercise to make it very, very simple. And another less simple question that you can ask yourself around this whole food, eating, body, what is my weight, where should I be, all that, any kind of obsessive thinking when it comes to food and eating that is not eating piece. Another question is, what would happen? What would I be afraid of if I didn't have trouble with food or eating at this particular moment? The moment I customarily have problems with food or eating. What if the whole dilemma and war and agony when it comes to eating was lifted out of the situation right at that moment? I'm at the banquet gathering. I'm alone in my house by myself with 5 hours of unscheduled time. I might think I have duties or laundry or house tasks, but mostly nobody's the boss in that situation. I just see, so if food and eating wasn't an option almost, you can almost think of it that way. And instead of just jumping to the conclusion like a lot of people do, which is, I don't want it to be an option. I would love that it wasn't an option. It'd be fabulous if food and eating wasn't a problem. Don't go there. That's covering over or sideswiping this exercise. It's to really think, what voice in me would be disturbed and troubled if food and eating were not possible? When I really think about my experience of binge eating, and if I didn't have the binging as an option, like a way to take out my aggression and fear and upset and trouble, if that was removed, maybe I'd be looking for another addiction. Who knows? Probably. But let's say that was out as a possibility. What would be troubling about that? I feel like, for me, as I look back, the magnanimous, what's the word, of that situation, the power, the profundity of the situation, and here I am alone in the world, thinking that I should be more successful, having this 5 hours in the evening and all the ideas that I have about what a human being should be doing. That's what would be there if I didn't have food or eating to take up my time and my mind and my heart and my feelings in that moment. I might be aware of how incredibly lonely I actually am, or how I'm so not at home with myself, or how I want to be more familiar and comfortable with silence, but somehow silence feels incredibly distant and difficult. And it's almost like my relationship with reality, or I could even say God. If you don't use the word God, that's totally fine. Reality, the world, with life is just troubled. It's sort of like a dilemma, if I really thought about it. So if I took food or eating as a thing out of my day, what else do I notice I'm afraid of? That's what I recognized was a real and true fear that blossomed. If I didn't have something to distract me or worry about when it came to food or eating, I just noticed there was other things that I would worry about, other problems. And you can even ask yourself in that specific situation, what do you see as the problem? So, for example, I really loved this one I heard once. Somebody was sharing how always when she went with a group of friends to go to the gym together and exercise, they would go out after for dinner. And she definitely felt like she wanted to join in on what everyone else was doing and eating and drinking and participating in. And that if she said no to that and did like what really felt right in her body and said no to having the beer or having the burger, that she would somehow be missing out, and that also these other people that she was with would make fun of her a little bit. So I just found that really, really interesting, that once she sat deeply with what would be the most disturbing if I did the opposite, if I didn't just join in and do what everyone else is doing, Why would that be bothering me? Why would that be disturbing? What would be troubling about that? So she realized in that specific moment, she'd feel like there's a great missing out. There's a sense of not joining in with being part of the human race and sampling it all and participating in what everyone else is doing at the same time, being part of the group. That's just a small little example. For me, that evening, open-ended time all by myself, I became really aware of huge lists that I had in my mind about what was required to be successful and that I should be doing all of it right now. So I gave myself no rest in an evening. It was like if I had open time, I still am like this a little bit. It's just that eating doesn't seem to come in and disturb the whole thing. It's not to the level I ever had it once before. But I'll still think, wow, I should be working on, X, Y, Z for my business. I should be finishing that database. I should be writing this thing over here. There's always a project, and nothing wrong with that. But just noticing I was not comfortable and thought I actually should not ever be sitting quietly without doing anything like you do in meditation. Everything has to be sort of like as if it's moving towards some greater success in the next moment, 5 minutes from now, 10 minutes from now. We can't actually just do nothing and be at peace with it. That would be terrible. It's a waste of time and a waste of your life. What an amazing thing to notice that I had that about open, unscheduled time, even though I desired and craved open, unscheduled time so very much. I could hardly let myself have a guilt-free experience of that and just getting to actually know the silence and be comfortable with it. This was hidden to me for years when it came to food and eating, because I would just begin to feel the list imposing itself upon me about what I should be doing to be a good person. And of course I would want to protest. I felt incredibly powerless with such a list in my mind about what was required to be successful or even just to be on even ground. So I would just rebel and feel upset inside about that list of all the to-dos that were required. And I'd wind up eating instead because I just wanted some downtime. I wanted to be away from my own dictator that was saying how I should live in every moment in order to be successful or even free or even enlightened. I mean, these things can have, it seems like a worthy goal, but it's somewhere in the future, and there's an absence of just connecting with it in this moment now. So do a little contemplation about that. It's a huge question, but it may be you don't have to scratch very much below the surface to see what would happen if I didn't have food as an option. If I had no escape mechanism, escape hatch, or a door I could unlock and run through, what would be the problem with this moment, this experience? Even if you're at a feast with all these people at a party, wherever it is you want to imagine yourself being. Maybe it's just your day, and you can do that as you wake up in the morning. Who would you be if you couldn't have the option of using food or eating as a way to either whip yourself or comfort yourself? What if it just no longer was an option? What else would be the matter? What else would be troubling? What an incredible question, because we'll usually say, oh, that would be fantastic. I just love it. And just stay right there. That's what I want. I'm going to kind of skip to the good news. See what else is there, because it's beckoning to you. It really is an invitation. And it may be safer than you think to take a look. All right. Let me know how it goes.